about us? The galaxy is just a big room with the lights turned out.
Starfield. I was worried that reviewing this game would not be easy. As someone who has played all the famous and iconic Bethesda titles and sunk literally thousands of hours in every single one of them, I obviously feared that I would unwillingly develop a very biased and fanboyish opinion. But then again, this game certainly has some big shoes to fill. For one, Bethesda's Starfield is a space-themed experience and marks the first emergence of a brand new IP in over 25 years. A very ambitious space exploration game with a completely new and unknown world and lore. This game has been in development for quite a long time, since 2015, because as we know, Bethesda likes to take their time and work out all the crevices and creases in their games and present extremely well-rounded, complete and bug-free products. Okay, but seriously now, as a Bethesda veteran, I can clearly say, yes, it is very similar to previous games, but Starfield is certainly different. I will say it up front, no, it's certainly not a flawless game, and some aspects even felt a little bit disappointing. But nevertheless, after playing this game for many hours, I have a very positive impression. This game certainly has this unique Bethesda flavor and style that just draws you in and makes you addicted for more. It's hard to explain really, you have to experience it for yourself if you never played one of the big Bethesda titles before. So yes, if you expect this game to be something completely new and mind-breaking, a perfect gaming experience without any bugs and glitches, no, it's just not their style. And it has also not changed with this game. So I think if you really never played a Bethesda game before, you might actually be a tad disappointed with Starfield. However, if you just want this unique Bethesda feel of world building, lore-rich storytelling and all that, if you can just accept and love this game with all its flaws, just like with its predecessors, namely Fallout and Skyrim, in other words, if you are already a Bethesda fan, you will also love this title, for sure. And even if you are new to those games, I would still recommend you to give it a try. On the surface, this game is very similar to its big siblings Elder Scrolls and Fallout. It is not that good looking, the graphics are not very impressive compared to other modern games. Some models look very detailed and interesting, but overall the graphics really look a bit dated. They look very similar to Fallout 4 actually. As a matter of fact, this is more or less the same engine after all. It's called Creation Engine 2 instead of Creation Engine 1 now, the engine that made Skyrim, Fallout and Fallout 76. So it's an upgraded version, yes, but it still looks very similar. So some NPCs, for example, move and look a bit weird, the game has its bugs here and there, and also the space exploration is not as vast and impressive as some people wanted it to be, at least based on what we knew before. Nevertheless, this game has everything that makes this very distinct Bethesda magic work. It has a fantastic atmospheric soundtrack, it has some interesting factions, it has obviously tons of side quests, and also interesting side quests, not just go there, fetch this. They certainly learned from previous games and tried to improve that as much as possible. As I said, if you really are new to Bethesda games, it might take a while till you feel that magic. You know, till the drug kicks in. Yes, that is how I personally experience Bethesda games. Once you get into it, you will want more, and more, and more, and it's very hard to let go. It just feels too good to be there in this imaginary world. And this game really has a lot to offer. So I will try to make this as spoiler-free as possible, of course, but let's break down this game a little bit so you can understand what I am talking about. First of all, I obviously tried this game on PC, and while it runs okay and stable, there were actually some controller bugs that will be fixed ASAP, I really hope. So, as usual, this game starts by creating a character, choosing your backstory and traits to which the world will immersively react later. The character creation is actually a bit less than we usually get in Bethesda games. There are no sliders, for example. They didn't do it too crazy. You cannot select genitalia like in other certain games, for example. However, you can select things like piercings. Oh, and one of the traits literally gives you an adoring fan, like in Oblivion. Now that's what I call fan service. Also, as usual, you start as a nobody, just a miner on some world, but it very quickly changes when you discover a certain something. And this is where the story kicks off, and all of a sudden you are a member of a weird group of space explorers called the Constellation.
While everyone else is busy playing politics, we're the ones braving the unknown, charting the vastness of space. Without us, the galaxy is just a big room with the lights turned out.
In the lore of this game, humans have already traveled far and inhabit a big part of the universe, lots of different planets, so it's kinda normal. But the Constellation still wants to explore space further, to infinity and beyond, and discover and understand all of its mysteries. Because if one is to understand the great mystery, one must study all its aspects. But jokes aside, while the NPCs, as already mentioned, look somewhat robotic, the facial animations certainly improved a lot. The voice acting and dialogues are really solid and deep. Some characters have very unique and complex personalities, and there is really a lot of it. You never know what you are in for until you start talking to them.
Not fair of me to take it out on you, especially since it would seem he made the right call this time. So, let's start over, shall we? Walter Stroud, CEO of Stroud Eklund, member of Constellation, and oft-times grumpy old man. Welcome aboard.
Your character is not voiced, by the way, as usual. Go away, Fallout 4, you are an exception. I said as usual, but nevertheless you have a lot of choice. The responses you pick actually do matter a lot and do not just serve the purpose of advancing the plotline. Of course, it's the main quest line that shines the most in its complexity and mysteries. I have to say it does take a while to really pick up though, actually takes a few hours till the real action starts. So this is why I fear that people who are new to Bethesda games might be a bit turned off. There is no big boom in the opening of the game that just instantly gets you hooked. No dragon destroying Helgen, no becoming the legendary warrior who can eat dragon souls, no nuclear catastrophe and then waking up after 200 years being frozen in cryosleep just to discover the world changed and ruined, your wife killed, your son taken. No, here the first couple of hours are actually kinda boring. Also, the first city you visit is not quite the capital with a huge impressive white tower in the middle. Well, actually there is a tower, never mind. I mean, the first city is quite big for Bethesda standards, but it's just not much going on there. The first couple of hours of gameplay actually feel a bit generic. However, if you stay with it, it is a very rewarding experience. I really recommend doing the main quest line for a while and not getting distracted with side quests, like we usually do with such games, at least until things really pick up. This happens around the time when you get to Neon, a really big city. By that time you should have all the cool stuff, a nice ship, nice gear, an allied faction. You see, there really is a lot of combat in this game, so while you are an explorer and you do a lot of exploring, you also have to kick ass a lot. You can't just talk your way out of everything, convince the final boss to shoot himself like in Mass Effect. It's only possible sometimes. There is this new persuasion system though, where you have to choose the right things to say. It is kinda interesting. But for situations where you have to go the shooty approach, of which there are a lot, it is recommended to get some decent gear and abilities into your possession, so you can just go crazy with all the exploration and side activities. And yes, the combat feels really nice in this game. The gunplay was improved for Fallout 4 back then, and here it is even better. The weapons also don't look as ridiculous as some did in Fallout 4. No, here the overall design of the items and weapons is really nice, and the gunplay feels really responsive and realistic. The melee combat is, however, a bit meh in my opinion. It is useful to finish off enemies sometimes, but it is not as overpowered as in Fallout 4, in my opinion. It does come in handy if you go for a more stealthy build, but I have not tried it out too much. The stealth is also a bit meh in my opinion. At least I didn't feel like using it much. Also, similar to Fallout and Skyrim, the combat is not that RPG heavy. Sure, there are numbers and skills and a huge skill tree, but it's no Morrowind combat for sure. They pretty much stayed with the action RPG formula. Also, here to unlock new skills in your skill tree, you actually have to complete some mini objectives until you can invest points in a stronger skill. Like for example, kill 50 enemies with a rifle before you can get this specific rifle skill. So it's more like in Skyrim than in Fallout, where you could just pick stuff when you level up. So basically you have to do the thing that you want to upgrade. And those objectives can get very specific the more you progress in a certain branch of a skill tree. It's not really a bad thing, but it requires some dedication. There is also a lot of variety in terms of weapons. This is definitely a strong point of this game. This game has way more weapon types compared to Fallout, so you can spend a lot of time alone on upgrading the skills for different weapon types, if you want to be like a weapon master and not just use the same type of weapon all the time. Of course, there is also the whole modifying and tweaking business, similar to how it was in Fallout 4. Same goes for armors, or should I say suits. So the whole crafting, breaking down for components, hunting for components, all this has been carried over from Fallout 4. So you will again most likely pick up everything that is not nailed down and wander around overburdened all the time. There is also a very nice scanner mode where you can see which objects you can actually pick up. It's very useful. And where do you get lots of stuff? Exactly, while exploring. And the exploration is really insane in this game. Lots of cool planets and cities to visit and explore. Okay, some of the environments might not look as neatly crafted as others. There is also a lot of auto-generated stuff. But I mean, we knew this beforehand. Todd was talking a lot about the auto-generation in his presentations and all. And honestly, it is not a downside in my opinion. It just brings a bit of the old school feel, like in TES Arena or Diablo for example. So the exploration is really huge in this game. It's kinda similar to how it was in Mass Effect, where you could go to a solar system, scan planets, see what resources and stuff there might be, only except that here you can actually fly to a specific planet, land on it and explore. One downside here is that there are a lot of loading screens and lots of clicking and micromanaging between all of this. You have to deal with fuel consumption and other parameters and you know, it's kinda too much sometimes. Like, they are making things overcomplicated. And then once you finally get to the planet, it may look a bit ugly of course, because random generated, you will run around a field with random stones and trees, finally find some cave, like a random generated dungeon, blast your way through it, get the loot. The upside is you see something new every time and can more or less infinitely dungeon siege. The downside, it can be really quite ugly and weird sometimes. Of course, you don't have to invest too much time in this if you don't want to. If you like exploring towns and doing side quests, there are a bazillion of those too. Not infinite, but a lot. There are also Radiant quests of course, so it's more or less infinite. But there are also some really long-going and deep side quests where you really have to invest some time. There are things like expeditions, faction-related quests that will also dynamically change depending on what factions you join. There are some piracy quests. Yes, this is a fun option if you go for an outlaw character. The piracy thing also means that there is a space combat, of course, in this game. It is nothing special, but it is quite cool. There is even something like a stealth option to sneak by enemy ships and avoid combat. There is also a VATS-like mechanic they implemented here. For those who do not know, basically you can strategically target specific parts of the ship in slow-mo. Take out the ship's engines, for example, and then board it. The only problem is that the game does not tell you that you need a skill to be able to do that. You can also manage your own ship's power, divert it to weapons to do more damage, for example, or to engines to fly faster, pretty much Star Trek style. So the space combat is quite okay. So yes, there is some nice gameplay variety. It's like a bit of everything for everyone. A lot of stuff you can do in this game. It's one very huge sandbox experience, you could say, even though separated by lots and lots of loading screens, which can be slightly annoying sometimes, but that was always a Bethesda thing. Also, speaking of Bethesda stuff, yes, as previously mentioned, this game can be fairly buggy from time to time. Fortunately, most of the time it just makes the game a little bit more silly and hilarious. Like, we will never forget what happens to us the first time we decided to fight that giant in Skyrim. Similar things can happen here too. It's just part of that distinct Bethesda charm. I will not even call it a flaw of this game. It is a feature, guys, you all know that. It's part of the experience. I mean, it was never game-breaking, to be honest. Sure, I got stuck a few times and had to reload. You know, just save more often and that's it. The bugs can be immersion-breaking sometimes, of course, I will admit that. But once again, for people like me who have been playing those games for so many years, okay, fine, maybe I am a little bit biased after all, but I just can't help it. Yes, some people will probably be a bit more touchy towards this subject than others, so it's a personal preference. Also, another positive thing that is similar to Fallout, we have weapon and armor modifications, but you can also build outposts on planets here, similar like we had settlements in Fallout. So yes, once again, some things are very similar. However, the best part is that here we also have ship building. This is something I probably liked the most in this game, simply because it's something really new. You can also get fairly crazy with the ships you build as you progress further and unlock more stuff. You can really design some huge ships piece by piece. It really reminded me of the online game Crossout, and honestly the vehicle building was the best part of it, so the fact that we have something similar here in Starfield is just awesome. So, all in all, I would give this game a 10 out of 10, obviously! No, I'm just kidding. As I said before, this game has flaws, and as biased as I am, I still would give this game something between a 8 and a 9. And as I said before, some people who are a bit more touchy towards certain stuff, the score might be even lower for them, but for me it's quite awesome. I also have not seen that much of the game. It is a really big game with many features and stuff to talk about, and considering the fact of mods, and yes, there will obviously be mods, this game will live a very long time and become better and better, like a fine wine. Until it becomes a 12 out of 10, and then a 15. Okay, now I'm just being silly. But I think you get the idea. It is a Bethesda game, and a really well done one. I am Ikari. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Leave a comment if you like, tell me what you think about this game. I thank you all for watching, and see you around.